All right, the Steelers lose to the New York Jets on Sunday, but the Kenny Pickett era has begun. Let's talk about what happened on Sunday and where the Steelers go from here. All right, welcome to Steeler Country. I am Tony Serino, back here on the channel. Apologize, I have not done one of these in what? It's probably been a week or two since I've done. Obviously, Thursday football throughout the schedule a little bit, and then a little thing called Hurricane Ian throughout the schedule a little bit. For those of you who don't know, I am in Central Florida, so we were hit a little bit. We were hit pretty hard, actually, but I ended up getting very, very lucky. No major damage to the house or anything like that. I actually didn't lose power, but a lot of people that I know did. So anyway, we're not here to talk about Hurricane Ian. We're here to talk about Hurricane Kenny, who came flying through Pittsburgh after halftime on Sunday. Look, this was such a disheartening loss. And you're losing to the Jets, not only losing to the Jets at home, but losing to the Jets at home in the fashion that they did, the fact that they had that 20-10 lead, and the fact that that lead slipped away what felt like so easily. I mean, you go from 20-10. They're playing Renegade in the stadium. It is just, Kenny has arrived, 2 touchdowns, and then everything just kind of fell apart from there. Well, I guess we'll start from the beginning of the game, right? We'll get to the Kenny stuff in a second. But, if you heard me on AFC North Talk last week, I did say this was probably going to be Mitch's last stand. The thing about this Jets team is they're not very good, but I thought from a defensive perspective, they matched up really well with what the Steelers want to do offensively, because what the Steelers really want to do offensively, or what Mitch Trubisky wants to do offensively, is get the ball to Deontay Johnson, right? I mean, let Deontay win in one-on-one. That has pretty much been in the limited success this Steeler offense has had for the first 3 weeks of the year. It has really come through Deontay winning in one-on-ones, right? He did a very good job of winning against Jalen Mills in week 2, did a very good job of winning against Awuzie in week 1, and of course, very good job of winning in one-on-one at times against Denzel Ward in week 3. But Sauce Gardner through 3 weeks had been one of the best corners in the league, and certainly one of these young players who come into the league and kind of take the position by storm. And so the worry that I had in this game was, look, the Steelers don't run an offense where Canada's making things super easy for Mitch. Mitch is certainly missing things out there, but a lot of the time, Mitch needs to see things open, and Canada's system is just not, again, guys aren't just running free everywhere. There are times where Mitch misses things, but at the end of the day, what Mitch is really missing is those window throws. And so if you're going to take away what is his best option, which is Deontay kind of winning one-on-one, and you're going to say, no, Mitch, you got to make some window throws here. I just felt like this was going to be a really poor game for Mitch. Maybe, I don't know that it was that bad. I think statistically it ended up being bad, but he had a couple nice throws in this one. I thought the pass to Deontay in the back of the end zone, you would have hoped Deontay got both feet down there. Tough catch, but that was a really good throw on Mitch's part. But, at the end of the day, the switch to Kenny, this is, we've all been calling this for weeks, right? At the end of the day, as I said at the beginning of the year, why did they sign Mitch Trubisky if this is the offense they're going to put him in? It was so obvious that, look, I'm not a huge fan of Matt Canada. I'm not a huge fan of the offensive scheme that they're running right now. But what has been so obvious since week 1, since you started seeing the kind of plays that they're calling, the kind of offense this is going to be, it made so much sense that Kenny Pickett's going to run this stuff way better. Even if Kenny's going to end up being, turnover machine or whatever, and it's not going to be like preseason, it's very clear Kenny Pickett will be a better player in this offense than Mitch Trubisky would have. And, I think that pretty much proved itself in the second half of this football game. Now, I don't know how you guys feel today. Obviously, we're not even 24 hours away from that loss. I'm recording this at noon on Monday. I have to say, obviously, the loss was as dejecting as I can remember for a lot of reasons. Kind of spoiled Kenny's game. He had, statistically, he had 3 interceptions, and so obviously that's going to get memed on and whatnot. But then just, the way that the defense kind of collapsed down the stretch. Went to bed last night feeling like, man, this is, you had kind of the same feeling of they just lost to Tebow in the playoffs, right? They just lost to Blake Bortles in the playoffs. Those kind of most dejected moments as a Steeler fan, this is certainly, I think, for me, in the kind of pantheon. But I don't know about you guys. I kind of woke up today feeling very different. I always preach this: don't be results oriented. Don't just look at the result and say that, okay, because a bad thing happened, that meant that everything that preceded it was also bad. And I come away from this game, and look, I understand Kenny threw 3 interceptions, and I understand he'd love to have, especially the throw to Freiermuth back. But at the end of the day, Kenny Pickett was good in this football game. I mean, I think I come away from this game more positive about Kenny, even though he threw 3 interceptions, than I do with any sort of major negatives about Kenny coming out of this one. And the reason I say that is because when we went back to preseason, everything looked so easy for him, right? He's very much a quarterback that was in his own element, and it was just kind of, they're in this coverage, and I'm going here. Everything was just kind of bang, bang, right? He just knew exactly where he wanted to go with the ball time after time. And the question was, okay, that's what happened in preseason. But when we get into the regular season, when defenses are going to be just doing a better job of disguising things, we're going to have more pressure, right? We're not just going to be running off man in every play. Okay, what happens to Kenny when it can't be that easy for him when he gets to the regular season, because it's just going to be different. And I thought, to me, the more I think about what happened yesterday, it was fairly the same as, it wasn't exactly the same. It wasn't 1-to-1. Kenny wasn't out there just, every ball is like the greatest thing you've ever seen, like it was in preseason. But by and large, yeah, Kenny knew where he wanted to go with the ball time and time again, and, delivered strikes down the field. The interceptions, let's talk about the interceptions real quick. First one to Claypool. The first one to Claypool, Kenny makes 2 big mistakes on that play. Obviously, it's an underthrown ball. The timing is off, and it's an underthrown pass. No doubt. That's the first mistake he made. He needs to throw that quicker, and he needs to, he needs to put more underneath that so Claypool can run underneath it. But the second big mistake that he made on that play is assuming that Chase Claypool is actually a good receiver in 50-50 ball situations. This guy, Chase Claypool sucks. I'm sorry. Chase, I'm out. I was back in when he moved to the slot, but I'm back out again on Chase Claypool. Let me show you, because Brian Batko took a great screenshot of this. This ball is intercepted. And for those of you listening in audio, I apologize. You're not going to see this. This is a screenshot of the all 22 of the play when the ball arrived at Chase Claypool's hands. That ball is intercepted. What is the point of Chase Claypool being 6'4" and 220 if he's going up against that's a 5'8" corner right there, who has his back to the ball, is reaching behind himself to get his hands on the ball? What we should be talking about today with this play is not the fact that, Kenny threw a bad ball and it was intercepted. We should be talking about, hey, that ball to Claypool, which was a great catch on Claypool's part, was actually an underthrow, and next time he needs to put one air under it. That's what we should be talking about today. But the fact that Chase Claypool cannot box out a 5'8" corner and bring this ball down, and instead lets it get tipped up, and then, Jordan Whitehead, who's the safety over here, comes over and intercepts it. It's ridiculous. When is the light ever coming on for Chase Claypool, or is this is who he is, right? I thought the fact that they were going to move him to the slot, that he was going to have these matchups where, look, you're 6'4", man. You're 6'4", 220. You're going to go up against all these undersized slot corners who have to be, shifty, and they got all this change of direction because they have to defend the whole field and whatnot. You're just gonna be able to just bully these dudes. And I get that he can't bully guys that are his own side anywhere close, right? 5'11", 5'10", 6 feet tall corners, fine. He was never able to body those guys. But now we're talking about like undersized dudes. And that's just crazy. Crazy talk. So the second one, so obviously that pass, obviously from Kenny's perspective, he needs to be quicker on that throw. Also, what I'd love to see out of Kenny Pickett or out of Matt Canada's offense is something in the play design to keep that safety from being able to come over on the over. That's kind of an over route, right? Where it's kind of a deep cross. Why is that play design have nothing in it to even make that safety think about going another place on the play? It's kind of designed to have double coverage against single high. This is why I talk about, the Matt Canada offense. Again, I'm not going to say it's as much to blame as Mitch for the ineffectiveness, but it's right there. That's why I always thought the whole Mitch versus Canada thing was so silly. It's like very clearly it's both. And this play is a good example of that. Why is there no part of this play that is designed to take away a single high safety? silliness. So anyway, that was throw number one. That was interception number one from Kenny. Interception number two is the worst, certainly the worst one that he threw. 2nd and 10. Steelers at the Jets 35. They're driving again. And this is the play that I talked about all preseason. As I said, okay, what happens to Kenny Pickett when he gets it wrong? When he drops back to pass and the coverage they were in or the throw he wanted to make isn't there. And what happens to Kenny Pickett from kind of an internal clock situation? Does he start bailing on clean pockets? Does he sit in there? How does he see the field? And what is going to happen to him in those kind of as the play breaks down? I thought he did a pretty good job throughout the day of using his feet, of getting outside the pocket, of keeping his eyes downfield and making yards where he could. That was the one case where there was nothing for him to do. He wasn't going to be able to escape the pocket. Right? So he couldn't use his legs for mobility. He couldn't escape that pocket because they did a good job containing him there. And he really had nothing to do down the field. So what he really needs, that was kind of a play where, hey, you got to just throw this one away. This one has to be thrown away. And instead he tries to force it in there to Freiermuth on the sideline. That one, again, gets tipped up and intercepted. That is clearly on Kenny. That's a silly throw that he should not have made. He should have just thrown that one away. Now, again, it did hit Freiermuth in the hands. It's funny. I was looking at PFF. Their charting just came out. All their numbers just came out. They actually didn't give Kenny Pickett a single turnover-worthy play in this one. 3 interceptions, but none of them they charted as a turnover-worthy play. Certainly, I know the first 2 would not have been turnover-worthy plays because the Claypool play, as I said, that's a 6'4" receiver just got to box him out and make a catch, and that's why you draft a 6'4", 220 receiver is to make those kind of catches. If you have to throw it perfectly to Claypool on a deep pass, why is he 6'4" and 220? Why not just put some 5'7" guy who's really fast out there? You know what I mean? So I understood why they didn't give that one a turnover-worthy play. Obviously, the Hail Mary is just silliness. I'm surprised they didn't give that one a turnover-worthy play. I'm going to assume that it's because that ball was kind of tipped up and it hit, it was accurate enough that it hit Freiermuth in the hands. But at the end of the day, that's kind of that's the worst throw that Kenny made. But otherwise, there was just a spark. You could feel it immediately as Kenny went into the game that, like, okay, this offense is competent now. I don't know how good it's going to be. I don't know how long, how this is going to kind of play itself out. But certainly on Sunday, that looked like a competent offense that could win football games. They went from, remember, with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback, the Pittsburgh Steelers were the worst offense in the National Football League. They had a drive success rate of 62%, meaning that 38% of their drives did not end in either a first down or did not have either a first down or a touchdown. Drive success rate of 62%. That's the worst. Not only is that, well, it's actually not the worst in the league. Carolina's worse, but it would have been the worst in the last three or 4 years. I forget when the last time someone had 61%. It was the Jets actually in I want to say it was 2018. Worst offense, least efficient offense, I should say, in like the last 4 years with Mitch. just 3 and out. They did what? 3 and outs in the first half, 2 3 and outs and a 4 and out in the first half. Then Kenny comes in and you can just immediately tell, okay, this guy's got command of it. You'll love what he said after the game when he says, hey, I told the coaches, like, don't change the plays because I'm in there. Like, I know the plays. Let's do this thing. Like, call the same stuff you've been calling. We'll make this work. You do love the kind of, whatever you want to call it, the moxie, the swag that he has. The play to Freiermuth, and I know you guys all know what I'm talking about. The play where he's the guy in his face and he hits Freiermuth down the seam. That was like a glitch in the Matrix play, wasn't it? That was exactly this, almost exactly the same play as in preseason against Jacksonville. In the, right there it's like the same situation. It's like inside the red zone, guy barreling down on him, hits him as he's throwing the ball. He stands in there, delivers a beautiful pass to Freiermuth down the seam, little run after catch, put him on the goal line. It was almost the same situation. It was almost identical to the play. And the fact that he's doing those, the fact that that's happening now in the regular season, again, is what puts this smile on my face today. Because everything else about this game is about as worrisome as I can remember as a Steeler fan. Because I got a question for you. How bad are the Pittsburgh Steelers? How bad are the Steelers right now? I've seen people throw out the idea that they're the worst team in the National Football League. And I don't have a good counter argument. What is the counter argument to they're not they're the worst? Okay, so if someone said they're the worst team in the league, what's the counter argument to that? No. They're not the worst because they got Kenny? Because they got a rookie? They got a rookie quarterback who looks good? Is that going to stop them from being the worst? Because the real problem in this game, the real thing that we need to be talking about today, the real thing we should be spending the majority of today's show talking about is what the hell happened to this defense. I understand that TJ Watt's not there. That's your best player, and you are certainly going to fall off without TJ. No question. But there's falling off from being a top 5-ish unit. And then there's whatever the hell just happened on those last 2 drives against Zach Wilson and the New York Jets. The Steelers take a 20-10 lead with, what was it, 10 minutes to go, 13 minutes to go, something like that. I mean, it's in the fourth quarter. And from that point forward, the Jets scored 2 11-play, 65-plus yard touchdowns to win the football game, to win the game. I have to say, I kind of sat in stunned silence after this game was over because I just could not believe that happened. And the reason why I couldn't believe it happened is because this just does not happen. The last time the Steelers blew a 2-score fourth quarter lead was almost 5 years ago. It was 2018. That game against the Chargers. That was a game where the Steelers had an 8-point lead going into the fourth quarter. And that was the wacky one. You'll remember that one because the Chargers returned a punt for a touchdown. They got a touchdown on an obvious false start. And then I think Artie blocked 2 kicks at the end of that one, blocked the field goal twice, blocked the game winner twice at the end of that one, and they called them offsides on both. That was a crazy game. But that was like an 8-point lead in the, to start the fourth quarter. This is 10 points with like 10 minutes to go against, that was Phillip Rivers and the Chargers offense. This is Zach Wilson and the Jets. And this defense can't get a stop at the end of the game. They just need to stop. They had him in fourth and they had him in what, 3rd and 9, 4th and 7 at the end of this game? A 1st and 20. The last drive, I think we all thought the same thing. When they got, was it the holding call, right? They had the holding call at the end of the game, and everyone thinks, okay, 1st and 20, this game is over. There is no chance that Zach Wilson and this Jets team is converting here and going on to win this football game. They did exactly that. And by the way, here's the worst part about that 1st and 20 play. They converted in 2 plays. They went 11 plays, and then they converted on 2nd and 9. They didn't even. By the way, I don't know that they even had a 3rd down on that drive. Did they have a 3rd down on that entire drive? The Jets? I don't believe they did. They were so efficient on that drive. They went like first down. And look, Edmonds went down in this game. I think that had a part. I think that had a role to play in it because certainly the middle of the field felt like as the game went on, it was so easy for them to exploit the middle of the field against this defense. Basically, go where Minka's not, and just good things will happen to them. Robert Spillane got picked. I mean, the Jets did a very good job at the end of this game of kind of exploiting the weaknesses that we've known about the Steeler team. Arthur Maulet as a nickel corner. Good player around the line of scrimmage. You don't really want him in coverage, though. As a coverage player, not great. And Robert Spillane, as much as all the coaches will talk about what a great communicator he is, we've talked about when he's out there, coaches are going to look at him and say, go where he is. Throw the ball where he is because he's not making plays in coverage. And that's what happened at the end of this one. And the sad part is the Steelers had no answer. I mean, there was no answer to this. The pass rush, the crazy thing about the pass rush in this game was that it was not bad. I mean, you can't sit there today and say, well, they didn't get any pass rush, right? They couldn't get pressure on Wilson. Though they got a ton of pressure. They got 20? They were credited with 23, 25 pressures in this game? The second most they've had all year. The only other time they had more was against the Bengals. But they had 1 sack. 1, 2? 1 or 2. Doesn't matter. I mean, 25 pressures and 2 sacks? And that's ridiculous. All they needed was 1 big stop at the end of that game. They win this football game. We're talking about Kenny Pickett going out, winning his first game at home, and now we start the Kenny Pickett era that way. But instead, a lot of soul searching today in Pittsburgh because, you can make the argument that Kenny was good enough to win that game. But this is a team built around defense. I mean, this is a team built to win defensively. Games are supposed to be won, like we saw on Sunday, where you get a lead in the fourth quarter of 2 scores, and it's a wrap it up. This is a Steeler W because this defense ain't giving it up. And instead, it was too easy for the Jets. And so you look at the schedule now, and you realize, okay, they couldn't beat the Jets with a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter at home. Crowd going nuts. I mean, the Kenny Chant, the whole energy of the team, of the stadium, was so different as soon as Kenny got in the game. You could tell from everyone. I mean, you'd listen to the offensive players at the end of the game. I mean, my goodness, it was like a weight was lifted from them. They were finally, we have a quarterback who can get us the ball. But, defensively, it was it's crazy that they just, I really am speechless because I don't have answers as to what happened here. And that defense might be bad, just straight up bad, because you can make excuses for them for what happened in Cleveland and say, okay, well, they got really exploited in that game and they got bullied, but conditioning and it was a Thursday game and they had so many snaps and yada, yada. And, but like, what is the answer to what happened against New York? And how do you make sure that when you're going, okay, so that just happened against Zach Wilson. Now you got Josh Allen coming. Now you got Tom Brady. You got Mike McDaniel in that Dolphins offense. Lamar, Burrow, right? Deshaun Watson later on this year. Top 5 defense? But that's how they're supposed to win games. So now I'll ask you, Steeler fans, how many wins are left on this schedule? How many guaranteed W's are left on this schedule? You look at the rest of it. Atlanta, at Atlanta, New Orleans, at Indy, Vegas. There's probably 4 or 5 wins where you'd say those are really winnable games. I'll throw the division games out, but of the non-division games, 4 or 5. I mean, does this team get to 5 wins? Does this team get to 6? They could be. I mean, this could legitimately not just be Tomlin's first losing season. I mean, they could legitimately have a top 5 pick. The crazy thing about this year is that okay. So hopefully Tomlin doesn't go back to Trubisky because that would be ridiculous. But I suppose we can't rule it out, right? We cannot rule out the idea that Tomlin's going to announce tomorrow that we're going back to Mitch because as he's, what does Tomlin hate more than anything? Tomlin is a results-oriented coach. We know that. And he hates turnovers. And Kenny threw 3 interceptions. So I'm not going to rule out, and he didn't rule it out at the end of the game. He said, we'll talk about next week. If he goes back to Mitch, boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. But yeah, where are the wins coming? This may be a year where they're going to get a good look at Kenny as long as he doesn't go back to Mitch. And then, just once we figure out what Kenny is and who Kenny is and whether or not this version of Kenny Pickett that we've watched throughout preseason and now through 2 quarters, whether this is a player that you can build on and feel like you can win games with, or they'll have a legitimate chance at a top 5 pick in a draft that will at least have two, top quarterbacks. I mean, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young are going to be top 5 picks next year. I guess there will be questions about Bryce Young and his size and the injury and all that stuff. But regardless, those are 2 top prospects at quarterback. And they could pull like a Kyler Murray, right? And this is, you can't rule that out either, that they could just go, okay, well, we don't think Kenny's that guy, so we're just going to kind of parlay it. Because even with Kenny, I mean, as good as Kenny is, how many games is this team winning going forward? Kenny gave them a 2-score lead. I understand the interception was bad, but here's the thing. Here's the other thing about that interception. Let's say he doesn't throw the interception. They settle for a field goal there. Okay, so then the Jets get the ball with down 6. Do we think the defense stops them in that case? Because they have less time? Time runs out on the Jets in that case? But they couldn't stop them. They couldn't stop them on the last drive. That's the craziest part about this. It's I'm not even going to sit here today and tell you that if they needed a touchdown. Kenny actually needed a touchdown to put that thing away at the end. That's why the interception hurts, because Kenny needed to win that game by himself. Defense wasn't helping. Defense no-showed in the fourth quarter against the Jets, against Zach Wilson and the Jets. All right, let's get to your comments here. I want to keep this one a little shorter today. Noah says Kenny was fun to watch and will make this team fun to watch, hopefully. Absolutely. Absolutely. Who among us today is going to sit here and say, oh, well, Kenny threw 3 interceptions, so we should go back to Mitch because I want to watch Mitch again. Does anybody want to see Mitch play another down for this team? I'd rather watch Kenny throw 3 interceptions every single week, right? Set the friggin' league record in interceptions, playing that way. The fact that he threw that ball up to Claypool like it's underthrown, I don't care. I love that. I love the idea that that's his first throw, right? That was his first throw of the game. YOLO, I'm putting up a 50-50 ball to Chase. Now, again, he just, he has to realize that that ball needs to be to Pickens. Because by the way, the connection that he has with Pickens right off rip, I mean, my goodness. The back shoulder stuff that they were doing, find someone who loves you as much as Kenny Pickett loves the back shoulder throw. Because he's just a back shoulder machine. Loved it. Yeah, I mean, it is going to be fun to watch with Kenny. Because at the end of the day, again, I'll be very shocked, much like Pickens, I'll be very shocked if Kenny isn't at least like average. It is kind of trending toward, well, I don't know what it's trending towards, but my worry about Kenny was never that he was going to be a bust. It was that he was going to like average out to kind of a Derek Carr type player, where you're not going to get the peaks of an elite quarterback. You're going to kind of stay as a, mid type quarterback. And that's just not good enough in this league. But regardless, the ride there will be fun. Carl said, I think that was a good ball. Chase has to pull that down. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it was a good ball. He needs to he needs to throw it quicker so that Claypool can be running underneath it. Now, look, you can make the argument that you'd rather him in that case. If you're it's 5'8" corner versus 6'4" receiver. So the worst thing you can do in that case is overthrow it. Give your receiver no chance to get it because you overthrow. So I'll agree with you here, Carl, in saying that you'd rather him underthrow it than overthrow it. Because if you underthrow it, then you put him in a box out 50-50 ball situation, which should not be a 50-50 ball. I mean, he should have caught that. I'll put it up again for those of you who hear earlier. This is what we're talking about. This is the ball that the first interception that Kenny threw as it hit Claypool's hands. The defender has his back to the ball and is reaching behind him. And he is able to tip that ball, get a hand on it, tip the ball away from Claypool, who cannot, again, just bully ball this one into a completion and is able to tip that up into the other player there, the safety that's coming over. That's what we're talking about. Insane. Let's see. Carl says about the Freiermuth interception, it's bad luck. Ball could have went out of bounds. Yeah, I agreed. But at the end of the day, it is bad luck, but the process was still bad. He shouldn't have thrown that pass in the first place. I agree that it's unlucky that it got intercepted. It should have been an incomplete pass, but it also should have never been thrown in the first place. And so, yeah. Peacock's asking, what's league average? I believe you're meaning for drive success rate. I will look that up real quick because I think I had that open. I was just doing research before we started today's show. Oh, maybe I don't have it open, but I can pull it up real quick. You want to be closer to 70% in drive success rate. The best teams in the league, let's look it up. Offensive drive success rate is 80%. That's Buffalo. The middle of the league, the 16th best team is, of course, Cincinnati because they have an average offense. 71%. And the Steelers are down at 62%. Yeah. Here we got it. We got it. The Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning threw 28 interceptions his rookie year. He did, but it's a very different league. Very different league back then. It's easier to play quarterback now. Look, the thing about let's call a spade a spade. This is why I say don't be results oriented with these interceptions. We can hand wave these interceptions, and the reason why I will hand wave these interceptions is because I'm not going to live in a world where all interceptions are equal. The interception of Claypool hit him in the hands. It was an underthrown ball, but it should have been caught. The interception of Freiermuth is a bad ball, as we said. It hit him in the hands. It was an unlucky interception. And then the Hail Mary is like, it's just whatever. Who cares about the Hail Mary? But it's not like Kenny's going, look, it'd be way worse. It'd be way worse today if we're talking about like the reason that they lost this game is because Kenny threw a pick six. Kenny just misread the coverage entirely, tried to throw a slant against a sitting hook defender. That's That's where we could say, okay, there's a problem here. Kenny's throwing interceptions because he can't read a defense, because he didn't see the coverage, because they completely fooled him in a coverage. But that's not what happened. You know, he underthrew a deep ball to Claypool. You know, he threw one to Fryman that he shouldn't have thrown that got tipped intercept. Okay, and then the other one's a Hail Mary. So again, we can use some nuance here with the interception thing. If he starts throwing crazy bad interceptions where it's like the accuracy is way off, he's overthrowing guys and it goes right into a safety's hands, or he's taking sack fumbles, right? His pocket awareness isn't there and he's not feeling defenders in the pocket, that kind of thing. Yeah, then I'll start to get worried about his turnover thing. But if you're going to tell me today, like, oh, Kenny Pickett throws all these picks, I'm not, if that's the interception that he's going to be throwing for his career, those are the worst ones I'm going to watch. I'll be very, very happy about Kenny Pickett's career. Very, very happy. Let's see. Nick says, is that mostly on inside linebackers and Mollett? Look, the all-22 is not out yet. So I again, to sit here today and try to diagnose exactly what happened and what coverage they were in and whatnot, it did feel like they were using a lot of single high with Minka as a robber player. And so Wilson would essentially just go where Minka was not. He had a lot of success doing that. Spillane got picked on. Mollett got picked on a ton in this game at the end. The run defense failed again though. I don't want to just put this all on like, the pass defense wasn't there. I mean, from a run defense perspective, they kind of ran the ball down the Steelers' throat at the end of that game. When it got to, what was it? They got the ball to about the 20, I think it was. And they ran the ball in the first play. And I thought to myself, what are they doing running the ball? They want to settle for a field goal in overtime? Like, cool. But then they just tried to run the ball down the Steelers' throat, and it was game over. X-Man says the defense failed us. It is baffling how poor that defense was yesterday, because there is so much invested in that defense. That is where all the money on this team is right now. And that is, they've invested draft after draft for years to put this thing together, to be the kind of top 5 unit. And I'm not even sure that they're good. It's crazy. Why is Spillane playing at all? Because the coaches really like his communication skills. And obviously this is a defense built a lot around communication, making sure that they're playing certain route concepts and certain formations the right way. And he does a good job of getting people in the right spot at the right time. But then you leave him out there in coverage. It's kind of a give and take. He's played all year. This isn't a new thing. Spillane played a good amount of minutes against Cincinnati. And, it wasn't like Burrow was out there exploiting Spillane all year. This was finally you had a team who realized like, oh, Spillane's out there all the time. Throw it to that guy. So I don't know. I don't know where they're going to go from here with the Spillane thing. I think they're going to keep playing him all year. Meat Whip says, at least we don't have the most boring offense with Kenny anymore. Again, thank goodness. Thank goodness. We don't have to. I mean, the fact that I never have to talk about Mitch Trubisky again, so happy. Just so happy. Because it just felt like after they lost to Cleveland, it was like, all right, we're just going to spin our wheels now. Now we're just going to kind of go through the motions of, ooh, can Mitch win? Can Mitch do enough? Can this defense do enough to win this football game? But who cares? Because this team is going nowhere fast with Mitch Trubisky. The idea that like, well, we're going to play Mitch because he's a veteran and, he can get us a playoff spot, or, they can challenge for the division with him. Like, that was gone. Not in this offense. Sorry. Not in this offense. No. Like, you're getting the worst Mitch Trubisky. So bail out and go with Kenny. I've seen this kind of analysis all over the past 24 hours about why didn't they have Kenny more ready for this game? And if you were 2 quarters away from benching Mitch, why not prep Kenny? I think there's some truth to that, certainly. I think if you're Mike Tomlin and you were anywhere close to playing Kenny, you just kind of have to go there, right? It's like once you start having the thought of maybe I need to go to Kenny, okay, go to Kenny now. Especially at this moment where it's 10 days rest. 10 days of prep, 10 days to get Kenny ready. The more underrated part about Kenny's performance yesterday is that he came in cold. I mean, ice cold. The guy had no reps in practice over the last 10 days. He talked about this after the game. Backup quarterbacks don't get reps in practice. You don't give reps to your backup in practice because why would you? He's not going to play. You give reps to the first team quarterback, the starter, and then you give reps to the third string guy because he's the scout team quarterback. He's essentially going to mimic what they're going to see from the opposition quarterback. The backup is there to just be ready just in case. So Kenny went into this game with a last 10 days of not prepping him to get ready, not putting together a game plan to accentuate his strengths or anything. It's just Tomlin realized too late, oh, right, this offense can't even beat the Jets, which I think was pretty obvious to a lot of us coming into the game. And I'm glad Tomlin finally got there, but it's a little silly to me that it took him this long to figure it out. Because if you're playing Mitch in this game, it's almost like, okay, well then we acknowledge that we could lose this game with Mitch, and that's okay. Because the alternative is, okay, well, we got to go to Kenny, so we might as well just get Kenny ready and get this thing started on 10 days rest. Because now it's like, okay, Kenny played a half, and now he's on to Buffalo, into Buffalo, where the Steelers are going to be 2 touchdown underdogs to the Buffalo Bills. One of the better defenses in the league, and certainly an offense in Josh Allen and that Bills team who are looking for revenge on what happened a year ago, and a Steeler defense that is going to be absolutely reeling after getting embarrassed by the Jets in the fourth quarter of that game. Let's see. Nick says what we're all thinking. James Pierre is better than Arthur Maulet. I was shocked that they never went to this. When Maulet kept getting picked on. It's like, all right, you're just going to keep doing this? Or are you going to put Cam in the slot and try Pierre out on the outside? Like, I'm not going to sit here today and say like James Pierre would have won the game for them. But at some point, you kind of had to realize we got to do something with Maulet here because he's just getting roasted. But they didn't. And yeah, it was so tough to watch. Again, I'm like, I apologize. I am speechless today about this defense because I cannot believe I watched that. I cannot believe I watched a Steeler defense give up 2 touchdowns. This Steeler defense, of all defenses, this one, the one that talked up all season, they're so great. All training camp, it was just like, this is an unbelievably dominant defense. And then 4 weeks into the season, it's like, not only are they not great, I'm not even sure they're good. Meatwhip says, with the bad looking our offensive linebackers, maybe we're able to keep Brian Flores on the roster. Yeah, I mean, I would assume Brian Flores is going to get a head coaching job, but I guess if they keep him on the roster for 2 years, or if they keep him as a coach for 2 years, they get the compensatory pick if he does go somewhere else. Yeah. I would assume he gets a head coaching job, though, at some point. Maybe not next year. X-Man says 4-13 if the defense doesn't step up. Yeah. I mean, 4-5 right now feels like the right number. I predicted 7 before the year. But I don't know that they're definitely not. There's no way they get to 7. Where are the 6 more wins coming from? Unless Kenny either is like the second coming or this defense turns an unbelievable corner in the next couple weeks. Because, again, they've got some of the better offenses in the league coming to town. Now, you watch what Zach Wilson did in kind of carving up the weaknesses of this defense. Zach Wilson understanding where are the weaknesses in the Steeler team defensively and how do I exploit them. Then you imagine that Tom Brady's coming to town in 2 weeks. And are we going to believe that Tom Brady's not going to be picking on Arthur Maulet and Robert Spillane in every occasion that he can? Of course he is. So they're gonna have to figure this thing out real quick because Josh Allen's gonna be his own beast. I mean, you got what 20-something pressures against Zach Wilson. You can't bring him down. You better work on tackling, or at least not going for swiping the ball and just like make sure we bring this guy down. Because if you don't bring Josh Allen down, he's gonna make great things happen after the play. Steelers have to go 2-2 in their next 4. 2-2 would bring them to what? 3-5. Yeah, I mean, how are they going to go 2-2? Buffalo, Tampa, Miami, Philly. If they win one of, I'll be really, really happy if they won one of those three or one of those four. 2-2 feels like maybe they could beat Miami because we'll see what happens with Miami over the next couple weeks with the whole Tua situation and whatnot. But that offense is really dangerous. I mean, that offense is so, and McDaniel is such a good offensive coach. The thing about that Thursday game, that offense didn't lose a whole lot of steam when Tua went out. They were certainly not as good as when Tua was in there, but it wasn't like, oh man, they're like half the playbook is limited now. He threw a bad interception at the end of that game to end it, but otherwise they were driving to take the lead. Teddy Bridgewater, the backup quarterback was. B-Whip says, don't give the first. Oh, yeah, that's true. Minka had an unbelievable game. I mean, Minka was the only defender out there who you would say that guy is on another level. I watched the game as I do pretty much every Sunday. The entire family came over, extended family. We're big Steeler family. And so they all came over to watch the game. And I was joking with them because how many plays were there in this game where Minka almost had he almost had an interception. It was like the ball would bounce and it was just almost there for Minka. And at one point I joked, I said, if the Steelers lose this game, it's on Minka because he should have had like 5 interceptions in this game, right? He needs to step up. He was having a tremendous game. Even on those last drives, Zach Wilson wasn't going his way, but Minka was. How many missed tackles were there where Minka had to end up being the guy making the tackle at the end? Just sloppy defensively. So sloppy. And I thought Minka was the only guy out there that actually played a plus game where you would say that was another positive performance from Minka. Otherwise, everyone else. I thought Highsmith was good, but look, pressures are good, but you can't have what did he have, like 7 pressures and 1 sack? Nah, you got to convert those. You got to convert those into sacks. The negativity of a sack is too valuable to just be a pressure guy, especially in a situation like this where any sort of negativity would have shut down. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that because they converted on 1st and 20. So, Nick says, do you think Warren should be taking more snaps from Najee? Najee wasn't bad. The problem with Najee, he lacks explosion, right? The running game is good, but it's not great. And the reason why it's not great is because great running backs can break off 15, 20, 25-yard runs. And it feels like Najee's hesitancy through the hole at times. And I understand his style, the kind of stop-start mentality. It is still very Le'Veon-esque. But at some point, you got to kind of burst. You got to kind of have that burst and go. And it always feels to me like Warren is far more likely to be a breakout or a breakaway type player. Whereas Najee is kind of Najee is your like slow and steady wins the race type of runner. And Warren is like more of your explosion. Najee really does lack that. It was a criticism of him coming out of college. So the offensive line hasn't been great, but they had, this offensive line they've been a plus this year. I mean, they really have. There have been times this year where the protection isn't always great. And certainly the ball to Frymouth, like there was a free rusher on that play that's happened from time to time, but certainly not with the level of consistency that we thought going in. I mean, I said before the year, boy, I hope that this offensive line could be thought of by the end of the year as like a top 25, top 20-ish. I mean, they were one of the worst in the league, certainly. But can they get up to like top 25, top 20-ish? I think they're there. I mean, I would probably put them closer to like league average, you would say at this point, from a pass block, run block perspective. They have not been bad. And I think that should end up being a real plus. I mean, the fact that this team is 1-3 and they have a decent enough offensive line. Just how much had to go wrong for that to be the case. And I also hate, can we stop saying this? Stop doing the whole, like, if the Steelers are a hurt long snapper away from 0-4. Okay, that's true. But I mean, if you want to play that game, we can play it in the opposite direction. They're a Gunnar Olszewski muffed punt away from potentially being 2-2. Oh, and also they're one defensive stop against the Jets away from being 2-2 or 3-1 if you count the Gunnar play. Right? It's like these kind of, we're one play away from X. I mean, you could use that in both directions though. I understand that, like, yes, they were lucky to win that game against Cincinnati given how it ended. But they were also unlucky in some of these games and how it ended. So, give and a take with that. State of the Steelers here says, what's up, Tony? Pickett showed some flashes. Can't wait to see him with a full week of prep and offense tailored for him that week. Yeah, I mean, I think from Kenny's perspective, I thought he played well in this game. I mean, I thought he played well enough to win. You know, I know, oh, you threw 3 interceptions. Like, no, he played well enough to win this football game. The throw to Frymouth, you love to have back. But, I mean, this is a defense where I should be able to trust that 4 minutes to go with a lead against Zach Wilson, the game is over. I don't care that my quarterback just threw a pick at the end. Get a stop. That's why this team is the highly paid defense in the National Football League. And I understand their best player isn't there. But again, we're talking about Zach Wilson and this Jets offense. We're not talking about Tom Brady or Josh Allen or Tua or Lamar or Burrow or the guys who are going to be coming to town, or Jalen Hurts, the guys who are going to be coming to town over the next 4 weeks. This is the easiest matchup the Steelers had defensively over the next 5 weeks. I mean, they failed miserably at the end of this game. So, yeah, I thought I thought Kenny played well in this one. Well enough to win, certainly. He's got to get better, obviously. The moment where he clearly, what he wanted to do on the play was not there, and he couldn't escape. That's a moment we've never seen from Kenny before. Never seen that moment from Kenny before in preseason or anything. That's where he's got to get better. And those moments are going to happen to him. And how he responds in those moments is going to pretty much dictate how well this offense can do over time. Because the defenses are going to start giving him looks that confuse him more and more and more. That's going to keep happening. So that moment was a big one. You know, was it like the worst mistake you could make? No, but it was still a bad decision. He's got to get better from that. Meatwhip says, regarding Kenny's arm strength, the Hail Mary in the end was around 70 yards. Yeah, I mean, it was a long throw. He still has to throw it high. Look, you're not going to say that he has like a Josh Allen arm by any stretch. But does he cross the NFL threshold? I think certainly. Yeah, I'm not worried. The thing for me with Kenny Pickett is not that like his arm strength is going to hold him back, you know, from being an NFL caliber quarterback. The problem is his arm strength is probably going to hold him back. He's going to have to be so like mentally on his game. And all quarterbacks do who don't have the elite arm. You have to have the kind of timing and anticipation that you make up for your lack of superior arm strength. And it's not just how far you can throw the ball, it's how hard you can get it there, right? How fast you can get the ball somewhere, how much you can fit a ball into a tight window. That's where his timing and his anticipation is going to have to make up for the fact that he doesn't have the elite arm. And the nice thing about what we've seen from Kenny so far, from preseason and now into this game, is it feels like the timing, the anticipation is good so far. And likely, as he starts to get more comfortable with the offense, with the receivers, and with what he's seeing from defenses, you would hope that will improve. You know, but like as a baseline of what we're seeing from Kenny thus far, as far as he was the most NFL ready, he played in an NFL system, he played 5 years of college and all that. And the guy, you know, no one's going to sit here today and say the guy looks lost. You know, he just can't play. I mean, if you're sitting here today because Kenny threw 3 interceptions and saying this guy can't play, you know, this is like disqualifying as an NFL quarterback, and you didn't watch the game. I mean, those people didn't watch the game. I mean, there are going to be people who make the Kenny three interception jokes who just didn't watch the game and don't understand the 3 interceptions that he threw. Very clearly, the stuff about like, you know, Kenny's the most NFL ready and all that stuff. Look, I've seen so much of Kenny do that in a stadium at this point that you almost need to disprove it. Right? At this point, it's not that we need to prove that he was the most NFL ready or that he's, you know, he played in a pro style and he's the most mature. Like at this point, it kind of needs to be disproven, doesn't it? Because we have so much evidence that is true now. Gina says, I don't mind that Kenny made that choice. Not ideal, but we've been complaining for the past weeks about how Mitch has been too safe. A bad throw that gives us a chance. I mean, I assume you're talking about the Frymouth one because the Chase one, I'd take that throw 10 times out of 10. Again, I'd love for him to put more air in it, but you know, you go do 6'4" receiver, 6'4", 220. Why can't you bring that down? The Frymouth one, you know, it's just the risk reward of that one. Like that's a risky throw, but it's a 2-yard completion if it's completed. Right? The risky throws that I would love to see this offense start making is like over a linebacker before the safety over the middle of the field, you know, or when they're in too high and you get a little cover 2 hole shot on like a corner route or something like that, or down the seam in between a linebacker and a safety. Those are the more of the kind of window throws that I'm looking for this offense. And I think Kenny will start to make those throws as we go. You could almost make an argument that the Frymouth one was more like that, right? Where it was down the seam, between linebacker and safety. You know, it wasn't exactly a tight window throw because Frymouth was open. But yeah, you know, in that case, it's more of a risk reward, right? Am I going to throw this ball into traffic for a 2-yard gain, or should I just, I'll just live to fight another day and throw this ball away? Oh, someone said we got to cut Gunner. I forgot about Gunner. Yeah, we need to talk about Gunner real quick before I end this thing. Kenny's going to make rookie mistakes, at least more than Mitch. I mean, this is the thing. This is the thing. This is why I'm happy today. I understand that this is probably the worst team I'll ever watch for the Steelers. I've been watching since '92. So yeah, this will. I mean, the 6-10 was the worst year the Steelers had under Cowher. They never had a losing season under Tomlin, but I would imagine that 6 wins is going to be really hard to come by. So this will be probably the worst Steelers season I've ever watched. But I'm super happy now because at least there was a light at the end of the tunnel. Let's see how good Kenny was. I think Kenny was good enough in week 1. You look at his EPA per play. Look at the efficiency numbers for Kenny Pickett yesterday with 3 interceptions. Let me just pull. Actually, I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up so you guys can see it. This is with interceptions. Kenny Pickett's efficiency numbers on an EPA per play basis. EPA meaning expected points. So expected points are what is the average number of points an offense scores given the situation, time, down and distance, where you are on the field, all of that, right? And then based on the result of the play, how many expected points did you add, right? Because if we can say where did the ball go to? What are the expected points in that play? You added X number of points. There's a way to measure efficiency compared to NFL averages over a certain amount of time. All right. So let me share my screen here and I will show you guys what I'm talking about. What do I want? Yeah, I want that. See if you guys can see this. So this is Kenny Pickett. This quarterback efficiency is measuring this is a blend. This is rbsdm.com, runningbacksdon'tmatter.com for those of you who need a better way to memorize or to remember this site. It's a site built by Ben Baldwin, who is a very good follow on Twitter, very good kind of advanced analytic type statistics and whatnot when it comes to the National Football League. This is his quarterback page. And so what we're measuring here, this is a blend of EPA per play and completion percentage over expectation. So completion percentage over expectation is where did you throw the ball on the field? How far down the field? How many air yards did you have? And how tight was the coverage? And how much do we expect, given what we know about throws like that in NFL history, how likely is that pass to be completed? Kenny Pickett, from a blend of EPA, including turnovers, and CPOE, completion percentage over expectation, was the second most efficient quarterback yesterday, behind only Geno Smith, who, if you guys saw that game against the Lions, holy cow, did they put it on Detroit. Geno had the game of a lifetime in that one. But just on an EPA, I mean, just, forget about, the completion percentage over expectation. Just go on an EPA per play basis. Kenny Pickett, with throwing 3 interceptions, was the 8th most efficient quarterback yesterday in the National Football League in his 20 snaps that he played. And that's one half of football. 50% success rate and a completion percentage of 83%. That's a completion percentage over expectation, by the way, of 18.7. 18% completion percentage over expectation for Kenny Pickett. I mean, a ball didn't hit the ground. For him. So, again, I understand that you're supposed to feel bad when your rookie quarterback comes in and throws 3 interceptions, right? You're supposed to say, oh, no, that's bad. My quarterback's going to be bad because he threw 3 interceptions. But I say this all the time. Let's not be results oriented. Let's not look at this like, oh, well, he threw 3 interceptions, therefore he's bad. No, I'll take the interceptions in context. One of them was a Hail Mary. One of them was a 50-50 ball to Chase Claypool that he should have caught. And the other one was a bad decision to Frymouth that was probably unlucky to be intercepted in the first place. Otherwise, Kenny looked like he did in preseason, didn't he? Didn't you do the Leo meme? Didn't everybody do it? When he threw the ball to Frymouth, as he's getting hit and he hits it down the seam. I mean, I couldn't help but be like, that's the exact same throw as preseason. That's the same one. I've seen that one. This is like a glitch in the Matrix. We've seen that one already. That was awesome. The fact that anytime you can have a player whose game translates like that, where you You saw it in preseason. You wonder, okay, well, let's just see if this happens in the regular season. Now, it is happening in the regular season. That has to make you excited, obviously. I do want to talk about Gunnar for a second because Gunnar Olszewski, it was nice knowing you. The fact that that guy's an all-pro is an absolute joke. He has now muffed a punt and fumbled in 3 weeks, in the last 3 weeks. If he's still on the team, I will be shocked. I think Tom, I understand that he's an all-pro and, but come on. Now, I think we're done there. I think we got to go Steven Sims now, and that's the end of Gunnar. It's ridiculous. We're talking about you're one of the best players of your position, and in 3 weeks, you've made two of the biggest mistakes you can make. I mean, it's the biggest sin you can make as a return man. Don't muff, don't fumble. Now, James Pierre jumps on the ball, so we could do the whole all's well that ends well, but no. You're all-pro return man. We should be talking about him today as giving the Steelers great field position, and all that, and great returns. That's not happening. And at the end of the day, every time he touches the ball now, you feel like it's a liability. So, to me, it's time for Steven Sims. It's time for Steven Sims. All right, a couple more questions here. We're approaching an hour. I'm going to cut it off at an hour as I always do. Amos says you could tell that the offense likes Kenny much more than Mitch. You could certainly tell that from what George Pickett said after the game. I forget the exact quote. I need to get it. I'll have it for if we do a show tomorrow. By the way, the reason I'm doing this on Monday is because I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do a show tomorrow. But if I do, then we'll read the full quote. But he said Pickens said something to the effect of when he was asked, like, were you guys how would you guys prepare for Kenny to be out there? And he basically said something like, no, we've been ready for that. We were ready. We've been ready for Kenny to be out there. It was no secret. I mean, this receiving core, I mean, they have made no secret of the fact that they did not like Mitch Trubisky as their quarterback, and they were ready for Kenny to come in there. And so, yeah, I think the fact that you could just tell. I mean, everyone on that offense was, when Kenny scored the sneak touchdown and Mason Cole, doing the fist bump and like everybody's hyped up for Kenny to score his first touchdown, you could just tell, like, no, that team loves Kenny for sure. And Kenny's got some swag to him. The fact that he got hit, a guy in his face gets hit, throws the ball down the seam, and then gets up and laughs in the face of the defender. And it's like, yeah, hit me again. Let's go. You love that stuff. I mean, you love the competitor in Kenny Pickett, certainly. Matthew says, perfect storm, backs against the wall. Everyone thinks we suck. Rookie quarterback in. If the Steelers don't win next game, I don't know about this being a winning season. Look, if they bounce back and beat Buffalo as a 2-touchdown underdog, if Kenny beats Buffalo in Buffalo, yeah, season back on. And we were here. We were here a year ago. We were 1-3. The Steelers were 1-3. I'm saying we as fans were here a year ago as talking about a 1-3 football team of, oh no, woe is us. They went on to win. They went on to be a 9-win football team a year ago. I just think that this year it's going to be a little different because the schedule is so difficult, and I don't trust this defense to come up with big stops and big moments right now. I just watched them get bullied against Cleveland, and then in the fourth quarter of this game, just get sliced and diced by Zach Wilson and the Jets. So I'm not confident in that. Amos kind of agreeing here with Matthew. He says, if we can pull off a win versus Buffalo, I'll be much more optimistic about the rest of this 4-week stretch because we'll potentially have TJ back for Tampa Bay. I don't know if we're going to. Has there been any kind of update on TJ? There probably won't be, right, till we get closer, till they take him off of IR, he starts practicing and whatnot. I've always thought that TJ is most likely to come back after the break, after the bye week. And I know that that's tough because this 4-week stretch coming up before the bye is for the toughest teams you can play. Buffalo, they're probably the second best team in the AFC now behind Kansas City. You got Tampa, Tom Brady. I know that they're not playing well right now, but it's Tom Brady. So we know our history there. You got Miami, one of my favorite offenses in the league, one of my favorite coaches in the league. And then you got Philly, who is right now the only undefeated team left, right? I mean, that's your next 4 games. So Nick says, when can Calvin Austin III come back? He's eligible to start coming back this week after week 4, right? Is it week 4 or 5 for short-term IR? Could be soon. Could be soon. That could be, and this goes to the Gunner point. Could be that they're going to bring CA3 in. You wonder when CA3 comes in, that's Calvin Austin, the super speedy receiver from Memphis, if that starts to change things offensively as far as using more motion and using him in the, as kind of a gadget player and whatnot. You wonder how quickly does he get worked in? He's been gone for a while now. I mean, this guy he didn't play in the preseason whatsoever. So talking about months since he's played. Just here says TJ's been doing work alone, apparently. That's good. That's good to hear. I look, you're never going to doubt a Watt for coming back from injury, right? I mean, the guy said, what was it? JJ said the other day, he was an AFib. He had to have his heart like restarted. He's like, I'm going to play today. So you're never going to doubt a Watt when it comes to coming back from injury. But again, I think with, in talking to, we have a doctor who we talked to on AFC North Talk, who I talked a little bit about this injury with. And, he was like, listen, you're going to need off-season surgery here. Like, this is not going to be 100%. It's going to take a lot of rehab and whatever to play through it. So that's why I've always kind of been more cautious about, maybe it's probably more of an off-season thing or a post-bye week thing, and then an off-season of surgery before he really gets back to 100%, but bye week before he can actually play. But we'll see. If TJ comes back, I mean, it's clearly he is going to be a spark that this defense so desperately needs right now, because boy, they've gone from the kind of top to, I don't even know where to rank this defense. Are they average? Was that average what we watched yesterday? Was that below average? Bad? It's kind of uncharted territory for this modern, this kind of post Minka Steeler defense. We are kind of in uncharted territory at this point. But we're not going to leave it on that note. We're going to leave it on the Kenny point. Kenny Pickett. The Kenny Pickett era has begun in Pittsburgh. Do not be results oriented when it comes to Kenny's performance. Do not let the 3 interceptions cloud what was otherwise a very good, a very efficient performance from Kenny. Moving the chains. It's what this offense has not done whatsoever. And the exciting thing about this Steeler team going forward, if that defense can regroup and offensively, they can actually, in the first quarter and first half of football games, be an efficient offense. Can that change things? Can that make this team a more competitive team going down the stretch? Certainly. They are finally a fun team to watch, and we'll talk more about them later on this week, right here on Steeler Country.